We're at Northey Park. We got here on first light this morning, roughly about 6 o'clock. Had a walk around and settled in a swim. I first heard about the lake years and years and years ago, back when I was a kid, just sort of, learning how to fish really. Float fishing, one on the feeder rod, all the rest of it, just sort of learning how to do it still. But yeah, we used to fish, it's all changed a little bit now, but we used to fish what was a puddle down there, but I think since then the lakes have been dug together, and that's what makes some of the bays that you'll probably see a bit later. Now they've been joined into the main lake. But yeah, so fished that years ago a couple of times, but I always remember one time specifically going over there. There was a small puddle of a pond, and loads of old boys sort of float fishing dotted all around it. And there's another lake at the back there, and I remember seeing a chap bivvy. He had the 3 rods set up, he had the lot, and he caught one. I was fishing just on the lake behind him, and I think the common was maybe only about £11, but in my eyes he was an absolute legend that day. And I went away from here absolutely buzzing, thinking, oh, yeah, I'm gonna have a go at that one day. I remember pulling out of here, going down the track, and my old man at the time just sort of pointed at this lake and was like, yeah, that's the Syndicate Lake. When you're a bit older, you'll be able to fish that. But yeah, life goes on, and you just sort of, you know, move away, do your bits and bobs, and do what you do in life. And yeah, God knows how many years later, I'm back. Only really started fishing it since February this year. I did have a really good result last year in July, just before I went on holiday with the family. The reason I didn't come on straight away is because I was not stuck fishing somewhere else, but I had my head into somewhere else, and that had been shut for spawning. So I came over here just for the night. I did sort of my usual, so I do a lot of work overnighters, and yeah, I got here, it was summer, so I didn't mind getting up. You know, you can get up in the morning, can't you, when it's summer? So I got up in the morning, got here probably, I don't know, 5 o'clock. I couldn't believe it that, like, midweek the lake was empty. There wasn't anybody on. I'd walked around a few of the bays and stuff, and I'd seen fish pretty much everywhere, but specifically actually the peg opposite where we are today, it was just absolutely full of them, like a jacuzzi, bubbles coming up everywhere, leaping out. I just clocked it on my phone. When the weed gets up in here, the spots, like where you can fish to, is pretty self-explanatory, because, you know, you're looking at holes in the weed. That's basically where you can go. It sort of narrows down your presentation opportunities, but that's fine by me. And yeah, just clocked it on my phone, took some pictures, drew some lines, and did all that. Went to work. 5 or 6 hours later, came back, found some drops, and yeah, had a real special one called Early Riser. Literally like an hour after casting out, I could not believe it. Called Tom down, and he did the photos for me, and he was buzzed up as well. He was really happy for me. And yeah, it's just a mega old one that are joined here because they've got little heart-shaped tails, little fins, like the proper old guard in here anyway. Yeah, they're just nice old fish, and it's just, you know, I'm local, so it's just one you want to kind of do before they all go. I finished on my old Syndicate. The ticket ran out in December and I wasn't renewing, so I decided to have Christmas off, and I wasn't actually going to come down until February, I think is what I decided, but I ended up getting here a little bit early, and I started walking it in January after work. The lake's really shallow. It's got, I don't know the exact number, but anywhere between 60 and 80 carp maybe. I think I sort of get told mixed stocking numbers, with a number of those being some really old nice ones. But yeah, got here sort of January time for a walk, and obviously with it being really shallow, I knew it would pick up early. It shuts for May, in May as well, which means that, you know, the spring is essentially, because it's shallow, it's brought forward a month, and the fish do come out, and they have been coming out. It's one of them really where I just wanted to get a bit of a head start. I didn't really know what I was in for. You always go in with things in your mind that you're going to do, but to be honest, I've ended up fishing it a completely different way to what I thought I was going to. I'd sort of walked the banks, and I was, you know, looking at swims that didn't have much footfall in them, all the swims of the grass still on the banks and things, thinking I'll get a nice little spot baited up and I'll do it that way. I do like, because I'm local and I fish lakes that are close to me, I do like to pre-bait if I can. But it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that with the amount of rain that we'd been having, they do get about and they get in the edge at all times of year. So first session, I don't know if you remember, was we'd had a really mild spell of weather where it was actually really cold during the day, but I think a couple of nights it got up to like 13-14 degrees at night, the really warm wind. So I came up here, had a good couple of laps round, and I ended up settling on a swim called Andy's. It was a bit of a nightmare getting into because everywhere's flooded and there's a bridge, so the swim's actually on an island, so I didn't realise I couldn't get my barrow properly over the bridge, so I had to unload it and load it all back on and do all of that. But I actually got into the swim and I'd literally just walked to the edge and there was just an almighty mirror like 2 foot from the actual swim itself. So I just rocked up into this swim, 3 rods ready to go, and there's an absolute whacker right there in front of me, so I didn't really know what to do, just flicked them out into the edge for the night. Nothing materialised, and nothing really materialised for the first few sessions. I think in hindsight I was probably a bit early, but you know, it was good to get about and it was very clear that they get in the edge. I think the next couple of sessions I'd sort of gone to a bay, which is up that end, the top end, and I tried to maybe trickle a bit of bait in because I felt at the time that maybe that swim wasn't fished a lot. I've now come to realise it actually is fished quite a bit, but I remember walking into the swim and it's a bit like last time. I'd walked in a bit blasé. This time I'd spooked quite a large fish just to the bay to my right, and it was a couple of feet from the bank, just sitting in the reeds, and once I'd spooked it, head and shouldered out, and just these huge flumes of bubbles were kicking up as it was swimming away. And straight away I thought, right, well, they're liking the edges 100%, and with the extra water it was very clear that they were maybe exploring a few areas they couldn't get to normally. Weirdly enough, I actually going down the bank on the opposite side of us, is sort of a bit of a funny barrow, a bit of a funny track, but the water's sort of pushed in almost, well, it's gone over the path, to be honest. When you barrow through, you're sort of about in a foot of water. But I remember seeing jackpike coming almost up to the path, swimming round, and I just thought, yeah, they're really getting in here. So first sort of port of call was fishing in the edges. I wanted to, you know, get that first bite of the year really, so I'd headed to a swim called Hump where it gave me good options for some margins and good options for some pads that were gonna imminently come up, probably the main set actually. And yeah, it wasn't too long after that I'd flicked a couple of rods in the edge, one out far, and just on an overnighter I'd managed to hook one really nice sort of fat football shaped 24-25 pounder. But I was over the moon. I was off in the morning, did some quick pictures and a bit of GoPro footage, and yeah, I was off. I was made up with it, to be honest. Just first one of the year. It felt like the first one of a new lake, even though I'd already had a right result. It just felt like the first one. But yeah, carried on from there, and from there I haven't. I've kept sort of steadily catching. So obviously I'd focused in on Hump again. I think the next time around I had maybe a couple of nights, but this time around I was fishing 2 edge spots, one towards the lilies coming up, and yeah, I think I ended up with 4 or 5 bites landing. Yeah, 4 bites, landing 3 of them, and one of them was a really nice original common. Not the biggest one in here by any stretch of the imagination. One called Shriveled Right Peck. It was an upper 20. Literally went as I was packing up, which is ideal, isn't it? Because all the kit was on the barrow ready to go. But yeah, it put up a right scrap. I mean, it's always one of them, isn't it? Like, it had been a couple of months since I'd caught a good one, so I was ringing some of the lads on the lake saying it was this fish and that fish. Realistically, it was nowhere near the size of the fish I thought it was going to be, but I later found out that it is perhaps the oldest fish in the lake, so could well be older than myself. That's why you come, isn't it? That's why you come and do it. But it was mint. It put up a right scrap under the rod tip, so I was really happy with that. Next session again, back in the same swim. Pretty much pressed repeat. This time, just an overnighter, just low 20 sort of common again, off in the morning. But it was great. It was all starting to roll whilst there was fish coming out around me, and there was a few other anglers on here that were sort of they're coming to the end of their time, so they've really got it sussed, and that's fine. They can do that. I'm still figuring it out and still going at my own pace. You can't ever compare yourself to people that have been on here longer than you or have got more time than you, because you're never gonna keep pace. You've just got to do it as you do it, and eventually, like, every dog has their day, don't they? So you just crack on, results will come. So back in hump again for my next session. I think I had a couple of nights this time. What I forgot to mention last time is after that session that I'd done in Andy's, where I saw that big carp right in the edge, I'd been for a walkabout the following week, during the week, just after work, just a quick look about, and I'd actually seen two fish in the bay there. One of them was a koi, and whilst I was looking at it, it sort of flopped out. It was only small, like, I don't know how big it was, but it couldn't have been more than 10-12 pounds, I don't think. I didn't even know there was any koi in here, but as it turns out, there's a couple more, because when I got back into hump, I think at the first morning, yeah, I'd hooked into a fish and it tore off through the reeds, and I just saw this sort of flashes of orange on its tail. It really scrapped, to be honest. It really tore me a new one. Can I say tore me a new one? I hooked into this fish and I just saw some sort of flecks on its tail. Yeah, I had an inkling that it might have been a koi of some description at that point. It really scrapped, took me right through the reeds, but eventually got it in. Yeah, big orange thing, sort of low 20s, but you know, it's PB koi for me, so had a picture with it. You know, you got to catch the lake's characters, haven't you, on the way? And yeah, it's definitely a character fish. I have actually come to have actually been told since that there's another one in here that I think is a little bit bigger than that one, so yeah, I'll take it, to be honest, happily. But it's not why we're here exactly, but you know, happily catch the lake's characters, like I said. But yes, that sort of ended with a couple of stockies, I think, and the koi was sort of the biggest one. What I did realise pretty early on is there are quite a few stockies in here, and yeah, I would have to sort of wade through a few to get to the better fish. I think when I'd come for that session in the summer, I'd definitely been lucky in, well, of course I'd been lucky in hooking one of the best ones in the lake, but I didn't really realise how lucky I was, because I think I must have gone through about 10-12 smaller fish, not necessarily what you'd call stockies, but the smaller carp in here, really focusing on that reed bed over there with the channel, because I'd seen them in there so much. Don't get me wrong, I was still nicking bites out in the pond, but I'd really focused in on this reed bed. The next session down, again, I just had an overnighter, but I decided I could have fished hump again, but I decided to fish this reed bed from the other side, Previously I'd seen a couple of fish sort of poke their heads out and roll the other side of these reeds, and I've been over it in the boat, and to be honest, it looked really good in there. So what I was doing was chucking out over there and sprinkling a little bit of bait and just fishing locked up, to be honest. And yeah, that one ended up with I think 3 bites in a morning, another lost one, a 23-pound common, and another small, really nice, pretty fully scaled. But that gave me a bit of ammunition to get back in there the next week. The next week, yeah, I just had the night again. This pretty much brings me up to where we are now. This was only last week, but yeah, so got back in the same swim, got the rods exactly where they were before. One thing I'd done differently is I'd actually come down the night before and I put quite a bit of bait out. I've been turning up midweek, and there has literally been, you know, maybe one other person on, and even then they're sort of turning up at the same time as me, so I've really had like the pick of the swims. Whilst I think it's good when there's a lot of anglers on. I mean, it's not a huge lake, and a lot of anglers on can sometimes push the fish about, but you know, I don't really mind. To be honest, I'd sooner have choice of where I want to go. And yeah, so I went back in a swim called Boise's, got the rods out, and it couldn't have been more than half an hour, and the rod, my right hand rod, absolutely whacked round. Straight away I knew it was better fish, and yeah, it tore off sort of through the channel of the reeds. But lucky, yeah, really lucky, to be honest, because once I'd actually hooked into it, it sort of just stopped in its tracks and came in a bit like a dog on a lead, as big fish do, but didn't put up a massive scrap. But I got it in the net, and this is one of the joys of sort of not really knowing, like not trying to look at the pictures of the fish too much that are available to you. And I could clearly see it was a very good fish. I had no clue whatsoever what it was, and I was sort of on the WhatsApp group with a few friends saying, you know, which fish is this, and they were sending me over photos and things. None of them had a clue either, and yeah, it turned out to be a fish called two-tone, which is, yeah, one of the proper ones, weighing, I think it was 40-pound 4 or 40-pound 2. Again, I got some GoPro footage and took some snaps, and to be honest, I didn't need any more, but I did end up with another 2 bites, just smaller ones, sort of low 20s, but I was happy, and yeah, carried on, and here we are this week. We've got a few nights ahead, which is a big session for me, and yeah, we'll see if we can nick a fish or two. So yeah, we've Woke up this morning, slept probably too well. Absolutely nothing's happened. To be honest, this wind cutting across is cold, and the opposite bank over there, from what we can see, looks like an absolute sun trap. So I think we'll probably give it an hour or two more here, and then have a mooch around some of the bays and see what we can find. Maybe a move will be on the cards, so we'll just take it bit by bit at the moment and go from there. So since waking up this morning, I think I mentioned before, it didn't quite feel right where we were. The wind was hammering into us and it was a really cold wind. So we've had a good look around today, and we've seen very little, to be honest, but what we have seen has been a bit further down the lake. So we've got all the kit packed away, come round and got ourselves into a swim which commands a bit of water at the end of the lake. What we've seen has been down here, and indeed since we've been in the swim in the last couple of hours, we've seen more fish activity in here than what we have in the previous 24 in the other swims. So a good move potentially. We've got the rods set and we'll see what happens through the night, and in the morning, fingers crossed for a bite. Feels all right.
doing me over. Oh mate, it's a whopper. It's a whopper. It's voices. Voices is voices.
She's good to go. She's an old girl. Come on! So as you saw last night, had a massive result catching one called Boise's, which is, yeah, one when you join you want to catch those kinds of fish. Super old, battle scars all over it. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Gave me a real crazy scrap as well, taking all the other rods out. Boat battle, held bottom, flumes of bubbles coming up. So yeah, it's really made the session. Got the rods back out, albeit in the dark last night, but they all went spot on. after that massive amount of carnage that our fish caused. And yeah, we've seen some fish in the area this morning. Not loads of feeding activity, but we've seen carp, so that's enough for now. If we get another bite before we leave, that'd be great. If not, we're going to be leaving happy either way. In classic fashion, cameraman's gone home and I have had a couple of bites, one of which is an amazing carp that I joined for. This one was the first one of the night. Very happy chappy. Oh, look at the fucking state of that. That's some ridiculous carp. Cameraman's gone home. Crater at 42 pound. Crapping out the bait all over me. She's heavy. Yes. Crater, 42 pound. I literally couldn't be happier. The width of this carp is ridiculous.
Buzzing.
Back she goes.